show you how I tie a traditional pheasant tail nymph, the way Frank Sawyer used to do it. And that is with thin copper wire and fibers from the pheasant cock's tail. And you want to make sure that these fibers are long. They should be, well, at least 2 inches, so you have some fibers to work with. So we start by attaching the copper wire at the bend, and then we must keep hold of this waist end till we return to the hook bend. We will wind it with just a few turns towards the hook eye, and just short of the hook eye leave a little space for, well, you could call it head, and then we're going to make a copper wire foundation. It serves 2 purposes. First of all, it fills out the thorax. Also it adds a little weight, but really filling out the thorax is more important. Frank Sawyer, I believe, talked about adding weight by using copper wire instead of tying silk, but I don't really believe in that. I believe it's mostly to add some sparkle. Now this is varnished copper wire. You can always buy it from Uni, for example, but that's expensive. If you're lucky, you might find some on an old spool from a radio or something similar. So you can go scrap hunting and see if you find something good. So now I have locked this waist end with my tying wire, so I can just nick that off. So now what we're going to do is to tie in the tail fibers. And you should not cut these off, but rip them off. So you have this tiny hooklet at the end, which allows you to grab it. It's a lot easier to work with the fibers. Now, commonly I use 4 fibers for a size 14. Now this is a size 12 hook, so you might want to add a fiber. So this is 5 fibers which I rip off. Make sure that they are as even as possible in the tips. Now one of these fibers was slightly shorter, so I'll just have to grab that one and stretch him so he's just about as long as the others. Also, you need to separate them at the base. Some of them are attached to each other now when we ripped them off, but take a dubbing needle or something and just tear them apart like that. It's important later when we are going to separate them. We are going to have, we will need to use really all of these fibers. You will require, maybe beginners would need like twice the length, but fibers won't become like 10 inches or something like that. So we want a really short tail to have material left for the body. Now I just tie it in straight away, as short as it is, but if you find that to be difficult, you can always tie it in longer and then just pull the fibers to the desired length. So we have 1 turn of copper wire, and then we have another one crossing this one. So it's a figure of 8 turn, but very small. So now we take these fibers and bring them down to the bend. Now bring them away from you in the direction you're going to rot them around the hook shank. Like that. And then what I sometimes do is add just a tiny bit of super glue to the shank here, a very thin layer. It reinforces the fly quite good, but I'm not going to do it on this one. So what we do here, we should have a thin body, not too thick, and that means we can't twist this too much. We're going to twist the fibers with the copper wire. So first of all, this very first turn is going to be quite fragile, so do twist it 3-4 times and then wind it, but then don't twist it anymore. Just continue winding this, and as I mentioned, you don't want it to be too thick. So even at the thorax here, you might even want to flatten it out somewhat. Just make sure that it's at least a little bit twisted together with the wire. And then we wind it over the thorax area, and once we have arrived at the hook eye, we separate the fibers from the wire. Like that. Make sure that they point forward. Now what we do, in one single turn, we turn the thread behind the thorax. And now we will fold this back and make the first layer of the wing case. Make it slightly shorter, because the third layer is going to have to be a bit longer, otherwise the wire will just fall down through a big hill of fibers. Then, with one turn, we lock it, bring it to the eye again, and you want to make sure that you spread these fibers over, seen from forward, 180 degrees, to make sure that you don't get too much bulk on the top. So here's the third turn of fibers, and as you see, the fibers are pretty much used up. So you tie it down with one turn, and then you would like to put some super glue on that. Frank Sawyer just made a couple of turns and then made a half hitch at the hook eye, but I believe you get quite much stronger results by using some super glue. So let's see if I can take some out of here. And there we are. Well, it wasn't very much, but you want to cover a few centimeters of it with super glue. Then wind a second turn and a third turn to really lock it down, and then with one turn towards the hook eye, and then you can wind 1 and 2 turns if you have super glued the wire, that is. Otherwise you just do a half hitch. Then you knock the wire off and you cut the surplus off like this, and that's your pheasant tail nymph done.